Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ambassadors, permanent representatives, and delegates of member states before the OAS, from the permanent observer missions, distinguished authorities of the General Secretariat of the OAS, special guests, friends, colleagues. Welcome to the second part of the program, where we will pay tribute to Judy Heumann, a great leader whose legacy has touched people all over the world. Please note that Spanish and English and sign language interpretation are available here today. Before we introduce her legacy and to kick off this commemoration, we invite you to draw your attention towards the screens for a short video message by Maria Soledad Cisternas, Special Envoy of the Secretary General of the United Nations on Disability and Accessibility, who knew Judy personally and shared her vision for the rights and inclusions of all persons with disabilities. If our colleagues from conferences could run the video, please. And she's also Chilean, that is correct.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos.
Everyone. I'm honored to be able to offer comment on the film Crip, since it speaks mainly to Judith Heumann's experiences in summer camps in the United States decades ago. Certainly, there is a lasting legacy, a transcendent legacy, thanks to the actions of these young people with disabilities back in those days, at a time in which this was called the Woodstock for persons with disabilities. However, here, they were clear that their aim was to pursue social and political change. And it's thanks to their efforts with respect to independent living that they were ultimately able to sway public opinion, to develop and enact in the United States the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is specifically a law on the rights of persons with disabilities. At a personal level, I was quite surprised when I learned about the pioneering story of Judith Heumann. I later met her when she was working at the World Bank, and then over at the U.S. Department of State. And I was struck by her capacity to listen to other people, to hear their points of view, to empathize with each and every one of them, and at the same time to propose the best ways to go about resolving some of the significant issues many persons with disabilities face in their lives. I saw her as someone down to earth, despite the fact that she held a great deal of power during her time at the U.S. Department of State. But she always stayed true to herself. I encountered her during the drafting of the Convention about the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and then we would run into each other at different events and forums. I particularly recall an occasion in 2019 when a group of us women with disabilities got together to adopt a declaration on women with disabilities and exercise of their or our fundamental and human rights. She was one of the first to say, "I'm there. I am going to sign this document." This is because she believed in the value of new initiatives. She knew that nothing was impossible. That was the story of her life, of how she took this path head on. And that is why I believe Judith's legacy in terms of independent living, in terms of what universal access or reasonable adjustments entail, promoting, protecting, and ensuring persons with disabilities full and equal enjoyment of their rights, will be unforgettable in our lives. There is no doubt that she was a woman of fortitude, of mettle, who deserves to be emulated, but never forgetting, however, that incredible gentleness she showed when interacting with others. Thank you very much.
And thank you again to all of you for joining this panel discussion before the screening of the acclaimed documentary. As it has been said, it's a powerful story that describes the experiences of one group of young persons with disabilities and their impressive journey to both adulthood as well as activism on behalf of the persons with disabilities to ensure accessibility for all. This film captures the rich and complicated history of disability rights, the movement, the culture, and the struggle. Crip Camp focuses on the story of Judith, or Judy, human, as we know, a lifelong advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. She contracted polio in 1949 in Brooklyn, New York, and began using a wheelchair for mobility. She was denied the right to attend school because she was considered a fire hazard. Can you believe it? A fire hazard. Her parents played a strong role in fighting for her rights as a child, and she ended up becoming one of the most important advocates for the inclusion of persons with disabilities at the national and international levels. As it has also been mentioned, she was instrumental in developing and implementing national disability rights legislation, including Section 504, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, which was actually a milestone in this and also for the region, the Rehabilitation Act, and the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at the global level. In 2020, President Obama appointed Judy as the U.S. first ever Special Advisor on International Disability Rights at the U.S. Department of State. Judy served also in the Clinton administration as Assistant Secretary of the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services at the U.S. Department of Education. And she also, as also mentioned by Maria Soledad, served as the World Bank's first advisor on disability and development. She is widely regarded as the mother of the disability rights movement, passed away at the age of 75 here in Washington, D.C., back in March 4th of this year. And today we seize this great opportunity to remember and celebrate her life, her great legacy of justice, and her fight for equality. At the OAS Department of Social Inclusion within the Secretariat for Access to Rights and Equity, we commend this visionary initiative of the Permanent Mission of the U.S., along with a group of friends of peoples with disabilities under the leadership of Chile, in raising awareness about the barriers still faced by persons with disabilities. As you all know, social inclusion of persons with disabilities has always been part and an important priority within the OAS hemispheric agenda, and this is why our member states adopted in 1999 the first international specialized treaty in the world on this subject, the Inter-American Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities, also known as the CIADI, and also a predecessor to the one at the global level at the UN, which entered into force in 2011. As a human rights instrument, the CIADIS, as we know it, recognizes that the situation of vulnerability in which persons with disabilities find themselves is not really due to the disability itself, but rather to the exclusion, isolation, and lack of access to equal development opportunities. A few years later, in 2007, the OAS General Assembly also adopted the Program of Action for the Decade of the Americas for the Rights and Dignity of Persons with Disabilities to consolidate substantive progress in building an inclusive society based on solidarity with persons with disabilities, accessible to all, eliminating social prejudices, stereotypes, and stigmas. And this program is committed precisely to combating the many discriminations against groups in situations of vulnerability that prevent their development and their full and effective participation and inclusion in society. I must also mention that the Department of Social Inclusion is a technical area responsible to support the member states in the implementation of this convention, the CIADIS. And in that context, I'm also very pleased to inform you that this event in which we're participating today directly contributes to goal number 1 of our program of action of the decade, which is about raising social awareness and strengthening the member states' commitment to create and build a culture of positive perception about the human potential, self-determination, and individual independence, knowledge, merit, skills, and contributions to society by persons with disabilities. By so doing, member states are also promoting respect for and protection of the dignity and rights of those persons. With this introduction, I would like to give the warmest welcome to our distinguished panelists who join us today and who will share their views on this documentary film and their work to promote the inclusion and access to rights of persons with disabilities. And I want to first welcome Ms. Sara Minkara, Special Advisor for International Disability Rights at the U.S. Department of State, to share her remarks. Ms. Minkara, you have the floor.
Is it on? Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
For those, okay, awesome. Can we just snap so I know how many in the room? Okay, great, awesome. I'm blind, by the way, that's why. Okay, amazing. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I claim to speak Spanish, but to be honest, I don't know Spanish that well. I did take it for 6 years in high school and middle school, so. But before I get started, I just want to thank my amazing team, Hannah, Rafael, and Nisma, who are sitting over there, and Cara and Christy, who are not with us, but just my team who really does the amazing work. You know, I'm going to be talking about Judy throughout my remarks, but I'm going to start off with a personal story that connects with all of this. So when I was 7 years old, actually on my birthday to be exact, I woke up that morning and I had lost most of my eyesight. I became blind. And you know, there's two main variables why I'm able to be here and do what I do. Two main variables. One are policies and legislations that I was privileged to have, you know, been able to benefit from, whether it's the ADA or the Rehab Act, all these amazing laws and legislations here in the U.S., where because of that, because when I became blind, I still had the right to continue to go into my public school system, for instance, right? Those laws and legislations are so important, and Judy Heumann was an amazing leader and influencer when it comes to these legislation. That's number one, right? But policies and laws and legislations, who implements them? It's society, it's people. So the second important variable is the narrative I was exposed to. First, in my household, my first society that I was exposed to, my parents, especially my mom, did not allow society's expectations or lack thereof when it comes to disability to ever enter the home. Because what's the narrative around disability in society? I feel bad for you. You're less than. You're incapable. You're not going to amount to anything. You're a burden. It's a favor for us to make access for you, right? That's the narrative. But in my household, my mom made sure that we, and I say we because my sister's also blind, we lived our life fully and we were able to say we belong, we exist, and we're going to have ambitions and dreams. But that's not the privilege. That's not the reality for most kids with disabilities across the globe. But another important figure in my life was actually Judy Heumann. She was a second mom to me. And I actually met her when I was in college, and she was actually the special advisor. And I remember meeting her when I was interning here in DC, and I came into her office, and I was like, and she took me under her wing, and she became a mother to me like she was a mother to many other people in this world. Where she really pushed me and many others to say, embrace your disability. Your disability is a strength. You exist. You have beauty and purpose to bring to this world. Don't ever forget that. I am not vulnerable because of my disability, but we're vulnerable because the system and society is not accessible to us. That's a distinction. Judy was a mother to so many of us and broke down so many barriers. And I have the privilege and honor, and to be honest, there are big shoes to fill, to be the second special advisor on international disability rights. But throughout these past 10 years and more, she was a person that really pushed me when I was running my nonprofit and my company, and made sure that we are always looking at disability as not only a human rights issue, but as an issue of value. So in our current role as special advisor with my amazing team, we focus on bringing disability rights as an important value to not only our foreign policy, but our economy, our peace and security, every single sector and segment of society, needs to include disability because not only the right thing to do, but we actually bring value. By making a system accessible for persons with disability, it's not a special thing. It actually creates more options of how to navigate this world, which will allow more people to benefit from. And I'll give you a very specific example. I was a math major in college. Classmates would always come to me and say, Sada, which classes are you taking next semester? I'm like, oh, why does that matter? They're like, well, whenever you're in the classroom, the professor becomes a better teacher. Why? Because he or she had to explain better what was on the board. Who benefited? Everyone. Accessibility is not an add-on. It actually benefits everyone. We are people that bring innovation and value to the climate conversation, to economic empowerment, to peace and security, to recovery. We're not people to be pitied. So in our current work, and I want to connect you to the OAS member states who have an amazing leader like Chile and others, how do we bring disability to the main stage? And a few things that we're focusing on in the Western Hemisphere. One is actually we're traveling to Peru next week because Peru will have the presidency of APEC. And we want to make sure Peru, as APEC continues its amazing work, disability is at main stage. Brazil has the presidency of G20 next year. We need to create a G20 disability summit. Let's make sure disability is not on the sidelines. It's not on the margins. But we're brought into the main conversation of economic development, peace and security, COVID response, climate action. For instance, when we talk about climate and disability, what's usually the phrasing? Resiliency. Sorry, we're more than resiliency. We need to be part of the conversation where we're talking about sustainable solutions, emergency response, because we bring an important perspective. Let's not forget that. And let's continue the amazing work that our member states and OAS are doing. And let's make sure we have this phrase that we can keep taking forward, nothing without us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mancera, for your remarks and this reflection on the power of legislation, narratives, and leaders such as Judy and yourself. Thank you so much for being with us. And she now has to step out, but we thank her for her participation. Thank you. Bye. Let me now welcome Ambassador Sebastián Kraljevic, Permanent Representative of Chile to the OAS, who is also coordinator of the OAS Group of Friends of Peoples with Disabilities. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Betilde. Wow, it's hard to speak after Sarah. It's a privilege and a challenge. I'm going to try to live up to her standards. Good afternoon, everyone. Marina, Betica. I wanted to take the floor based on the role Chile plays as coordinator of the group of countries, Friends of Persons with Disability. We came into this with a great commitment and a passion for this movement. It's something that mobilized us. This was created in 2017. Our objective is to support efforts in the region and the OAS having to do with empowerment and rights for persons with disability, look at different aspects of their lives, and to make sure that we're working in consistently with the different conventions and CIADES. The group is also to highlight the situation of persons with disabilities, highlight their accomplishments, raise awareness in the region to ensure that everyone is aware that of the rights of persons are respected and no one is left behind. Currently, we're hoping to expand the group right now at Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, the United States, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, and Peru. The Dominican Republic and Uruguay are part of this. We wanted to express our gratitude to each and every one of these countries. As coordinator, we are pleased to be able to put this matter on the table and also negotiate any section related to persons with disabilities that were part of the Human Rights Omnibus resolution in our most recent General Assembly. I should also mention the collaborative work that the Department of Social Inclusion provides to us in the technical support for the group. I would like to thank personally the members of the team, Batilda Munoz and her entire team for their work. As permanent representative of Chile, I wanted to reiterate our commitment from the perspective of rights to ensure equal opportunity for persons with disabilities in this case, and in the broader sense, which includes social inclusion, meaning that each individual can fully assert their rights without any discrimination. We have seen some progress, different initiatives that we're pursuing. We want to ensure that we can guarantee, in the broadest sense possible, this inclusion and participation. As Sara Mincarda was just saying, recognizing the values that we all share. As to Crip Camp, I have not yet seen the film. I am looking forward to doing so. This is the legacy of Judy Heumann, but it is also a clear example of the force of narrative, as Sarah noted. It also shows us the importance when popular will and political will come together to achieve change. I think at a multilateral level, there's still a long way to go before we understand this fully. I hope that by seeing this film, it will help us. And for example, everything that we've seen happen at the museum, but there's a long road ahead, much to be done. We must acknowledge what has been done, but that should not prevent us from continuing to pursue fuller inclusion. I wanted to thank the permanent mission of the United States to the OAS, which has pushed this cart forward more than anyone. Also, the mission of Uruguay for their part in organizing this event. I think it is time to become aware and to forcefully work to pursue these rights. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I also wanted to highlight the fact that this group of friends was created within the OAS. This is an illustration of the political support and commitment that the organization has to the inclusion of persons with disabilities. The work must continue.
Next guest, Ms. Catherine Guernsey, USAID Disability Rights Coordinator and former Senior Advisor to Judy, is unable to join us today, but she sent some remarks that will be read by our colleague from the Permanent Mission of the U.S. to the OAS, Andrew Stevenson. So I will now pass the floor to him so he can read those remarks.
Well, thank you, Batilda. I really appreciate it. So, my name is Andrew Stevenson. I'm really honored to join today's panel in representation of the U.S. mission to the OAS. I'm really honored also to share some remarks on behalf of Catherine Guernsey, who served as special advisor to Judy Heumann during her tenure at the State Department as the first special advisor on international disability rights, and that was from 2010 to 2017. Kathy now serves as Disability Rights Coordinator at the U.S. Agency for International Development, where we're very happy that she carries forward Judy's legacy. I had the chance to work with both Kathy and Judy at the State Department, and we engaged both with the OAS and also with civil society from throughout the Americas during her time. Judy came to the OAS, and she traveled in the Americas. She met with persons with disabilities, civil society organizations, and governments to share how everyone can use their voice to champion and advocate for disability rights. I will never forget how she was welcomed like a rock star, both here and from what I saw in Latin America. And on a personal note, and as the son of a single mother with severe spina bifida, this event today is really a special one. My mom often talked about how the Americans with Disabilities Act so profoundly impacted her life. So now let me share some of the remarks prepared today for us by Catherine Guernsey. And she conveys to everyone, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to today's important event, and my sincere apologies that I'm unable to do so in person. Judy was very committed to the mission of the Organization of American States and welcomed the opportunity to participate in events related to the Decade of the Americas for the rights and dignity of persons with disabilities, where she pushed for a strong role for civil society, an approach in keeping with international standards adopted in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Judy was keen to share the experiences of the United States so that others might learn from our successes as well as our mistakes. A common refrain of hers was the need for strong non-discrimination laws backed by effective implementation mechanisms, without which she felt that talk of non-discrimination was just that, talk. And I think we can say we just heard that from our ambassador to the OAS as well. Judy was also committed to ensuring that civil society could speak truth to power. She often spoke of the need to respect the healthy tension between government and civil society so that disabled persons organizations run by persons with disabilities themselves, could freely offer their advice and recommendations, even, as many of us know, their messages were not necessarily what governments wanted to hear. She also believed in being honest and frank, especially with friends, and I've heard that myself at the State Department. When a particular OAS meeting was to be held in a space accessible to wheelchair users only through the kitchen, she declined to participate, and I remember that. But to OAS member states' credit, that space is now physically accessible to anyone using a wheelchair or mobility device. So today, as we can contemplate Judy's legacy and the crucial role that disability advocates, as represented so memorably in Crip Camp, convey, I've no doubt that Judy would have had a long list of ideas on how member states can contribute to a world that protects and respects the rights, dignity, and equality of persons with disabilities. But she would also ask us to lead by example, ensuring that member states' laws are strong, that we embody in standards of non-discrimination and accessibility, not only at the national level, but also in the work and the operations of the OAS itself. And I think we heard that today with respect to the Art Museum. She would also counsel us to ensure a safe space for civil society, including a civil society of disabled persons, to be free to make recommendations without fear or fear of reprisal. And so lastly, I'm sure she would encourage OAS member states to play a leadership role, all OAS member states, in disability rights, not only here within the Americas, but also globally. So colleagues and friends, on my part, and also on the part of Kathy, thank you again for the opportunity to contribute. We both very much hope you will enjoy Crip Camp. I know I have, which showcases Judy at her, quote, revolutionary finest. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your personal story and also reading Catherine's remarks. Thanks so much. And I'm now pleased to welcome our last panelist, Ms. Luz Marina Correa. She's the Colombian representative and program manager for the Trust of the Americas, and specifically their Poeta project, which she will describe right now. So thank you so much for joining us, and you have the floor.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Betilda. Muchas gracias a
Thank you, Betilda. Thank you all. As Betilda said, I am Luz Marina Correa. I am the manager of Transform the Americas, and it's an honor, Trust for the Americas. It's an honor for me to be here in this important space representing Trust for the Americas and our hemispheric program called POETA. What is POETA? It's a program of economic opportunities through technology in the Americas. That's the acronym in Spanish. For 25 years, we have been working, making efforts with different sectors, public sector, private sector, with organization of the civil society. And it is one of our cross-cutting objectives, promote inclusion of people with disabilities. It's been a priority in our agenda, in our programs. And this reminds me that in 2004, when we created the first technological center for people with disabilities in Guatemala. And this is a great opportunity to thank Betilda Muñoz, who was very important, very relevant for us to implement this. And throughout the years, we've been expanding these inclusion centers for people with disabilities and people in several situations of marginality in different situations, and by empowering people with disabilities through technology with important partners like CAF, Microsoft, we were able to strengthen our local organizations in the hemisphere as a whole to have a greater impact on the lives of people, strengthening their digital capacities through training, capacity building, but also through local organizations. We've been strengthening their spaces. We use technology as an important element to create the conditions, equal conditions for access and inclusion. What was said before is true. We create the conditions for us to all be people, for all people to have equal access. And we work jointly with local authorities, with methodologies, inclusion strategies, so that the centers, technological centers for inclusion and training allow access given the different physical disabilities that people have, so that these people can be trained equally with equal conditions. And thus, throughout the years, we have had an impact on more than 30,000 people with disabilities. More than 14,000 are women of those 30,000. And we were able to contribute to the creation of 8,000 work opportunities, strengthening, empowering people with disabilities, allowing them to get better jobs, better opportunities, access to higher education, improve their business ventures, generate more jobs, have greater impact in their families and communities. For us, people with disabilities are a priority, and we know that we've done a lot. We've been able to do a lot, but we still have a lot to do. And that's what we're doing now, jointly with the OAS, with the private sector, with civil society organizations. And we would like to thank the U.S. mission of the OAS for having invited us to talk about what we do. And as we empowered people, as we worked with multiple stakeholders, we would like you to see 2 videos of the work we do empowering people with disabilities. Technology as an important factor, training, capacity building, and an important factor is that through our toolkit, a toolkit that we have in for training and capacity building, we see that the greater number of downloads in our content repository are the people who train the trainers, people who train people with disabilities. We've had 15 years working with organizations in Argentina, organization for the blind and the deaf in Guatemala, in Santa Catarina. They are our greatest allies for us to work jointly at the local level. So let me invite you to look at these videos that show success stories.
Give us a second. They're setting up the 2 videos for us.
My left leg was amputated. It was a medical malpractice. The doctor did not know how to deal with this. And my problems started when I was very young. They decided to operate to solve a small problem. And in the end, I was amputated, but I have not given up. And I've done a lot of stuff. I was able to get to know Poeta through my rehabilitation. They told me, what do you want to learn? Do you want to train in technology? And I started to come to this center, and there was a facilitator that helped me. I learned I learned a lot. I learned to be a person, and it was good for me to see people with more difficulties than me and that do many more things. So they told me, do you want to work in Poeta as an instructor? And I'm doing that. I am working guiding people with disabilities in all that has to do with technology and social networks. My experience has been great. Not only do I teach, but also people that live here teach me a little bit every day. And what I learned, I am applying to my students. I was motivated to study and go forward as an example for my life. For most of us who live in this situation, as a trainer, as a human being, we build friendships. It helped me in my recovery. It was a therapy. Poeta, for me, is my life, is to go back to life. Thank you. My family is happy and is proud of me.
There's also a second video.
I'm Luis. I'm 31. I'm from Santa Fe. I live with my family, my parents, my siblings. I stopped going to high school to work. I was working in construction, and when I was 27,
Just a second, please. Do we have the video ready?
Bueno, mientras superamos las dificultades técnicas,
while we overcome these technical difficulties, that's what Poeta does for people. We have a wonderful team in different countries, and we have been making efforts to empower more people with better tools, with more skills, so that they can have better jobs, to get more dignity for their lives, so that the quality of life of their families is also improved. When I was 27, we start again. My name is Luis. I'm 31. I'm from Santa Fe. I live with my family, my parents, my siblings. I stopped going to high school to go to work. I work in construction. I installed a door lock, and when I was 27, they tried to rob me. I resisted, and they shot me. They shot at me. I arrived at Poeta de Gispard, thanks to a friend who was doing rehabilitation, and I saw that people had their cell phones all the time, and when their devices fails, the routine became chaos. So I started to get information on the internet, and I started to work in the repair for mobile phones. That's what they told me. Poeta can help you. I liked it, and I started to take courses to deal with a computer is what I wanted to do. My first course was Introduction to Web Development. I arrived at I was the third class. When I started, I knew nothing. I didn't even know how to turn on the computer. I learned HTML and CSS. Now I'm taking another course for mobile applications and PC operator. And what motivated me most was this digital world. I liked it. And I see that he's always looking for things. He perseveres. He asks questions. He tries to find answers. When I started, I had a business which was repairing cell phones, and currently, thanks to the fact that now I learned to deal with a computer, I also sell spare parts for the cell phones, and it helped me to go up a step in my business. Technology opens my mind. It helps me. I'm not at home. And my main objective would be to conclude my courses, to finish the high school. I'm doing that now. And my dream would be to have a good job related to what I'm learning, to technology. And thanks to Poeta and Microsoft, who helped me to enter into the world of technology, change the way I think, and continue going forward. Thank you very much. Excellent videos and excellent work done through Poeta. We know about it. We know the impact it has on people's lives. Congratulations. Luz Marina was our last panelist, but we want to close this presentation with a dialogue with the audience. I have a short question. We heard that a lot has been done, but there's still a lot to be done. We got legislation, resolutions, mandates, but we always face difficulties in translating that in access to the rights of people with disabilities. If you have a message for the member states, to other actors that needs to give priority to these agendas in 2 minutes, what would be the message you would be giving them? Ambassador, you have the floor. I think listen to the civil society with an open mind more frequently, because that is what tells us where we are late, where we can go forward more quickly. Sometimes we feel that what the states feel that no value is given to what we do, but I think that's very important. We can go forward by listening. And That's the reason why we're here, as a tribute to Judith, who started working in the civil society, mobilized changes, and was able to get important legislation approved. And then she became a member of the government. So there are important voices that begin in civil society but end up working in government. It's important to listen to voices, to the contributions of civil society. Andrew.
Well, it's a very good question, because I think having worked with Judy, it just seems to me that the sense would be, as we're talking about democracy, as we're talking about the core pillars of the OAS, all the different pillars that we care about, democracy, security, development, human rights, that we're thinking about the rights of persons with disabilities, persons who live with disabilities, as we think about many other approaches. So it's not a hived off box of issues when we're talking about persons with disabilities. It's rather thinking about disabilities, inclusion, and access when we're talking about climate, when we're talking about disability, when we're talking about security. It's not some sort of special area of rights. It's rather part of our consideration of the broader efforts that we're trying to engage on. And that's really, I think, at the root of what we talk about in terms of inclusion, of cross pollination, of intersectionality. It's making sure we're thinking of all peoples, but including those peoples in those discussions and those representatives. So it's not just certain governments making decisions or certain selected members of civil society making those decisions. That's what I would say.
Muy bien. Esta idea de transversalizar esa visión y contribución.
Yes, cross-cutting. And I liked Sara Mincaro's example, a special advisor for the State Department, who said that her classmates asked her, where are you going to register? Because her presence improved the quality of teaching, showing that we should not leave those things aside. Not only do people with disabilities gain, but we all gain when we work together. Very good point. And Luz Marina? From our trust, one of our strong points is the mission to promote partnerships. And I think I mentioned it when I spoke. The joint work we do with governments, with organizations of civil society, with multilateral organizations, and each action we undertake has as an objective impacting public policies in the agendas that have to do with work and empowerment of people with disabilities, improve access to rights, to better conditions. And we were able to create a technological center with help of the private sector. Now, in 2023, in the hemisphere, we have more than 300 technological centers. We have to continue working together to have continuous impact on the public policies, improving the life of people with disabilities. And that work is not something we do alone. The work has to be done jointly in a coordinated fashion. And as Embajador Sebastián said, the work of the countries is very important. It is there that you validate and perpetuate actions. Our efforts through programs should go directly to those sensitive parts of public policies in the states so that government changes will not make us go back. And that is really important. So we have to work jointly so that efforts can have a broader impact, greater reach, so that we don't go backwards, but we improve what we do, impacting more lives. That's what's more important. The value of alliances.
Has a question, a reflection, something to share. If anyone knew Judy, of those of you in the audience, we welcome any comments before we move on to the screening of the documentary. So I'm going to open the floor now. No comments? Okay, so I'm going to give the floor again to Ambassador.
quería contarles que desde el
I wanted to tell you that since November 17 to the 26th in Santiago, we have the Pan American Games. It's another instance of inclusion. That's 1943 athletes with disabilities competing. So 17 to 26 November in Santiago.
Okay, if we don't have any comments at this point, I am pleased now to present to you the film Crip Camp, A Disability Revolution, a 2020 American documentary film directed, written, and co-produced by Nicole Newham and James Lebrecht. Barack and Michelle Obama serve as executive producers under their Higher Ground Productions banner. Crip Camp won the Audience Award for the Best U.S. Documentary at the Sundance Film Festival in 2020, and in 2021 was a nominee for an Academy Award, or the Oscars, for Best Documentary Feature. There will be audio descriptions for those who need it in the film. It will also be shown in 2 screens, one with English subtitles and the other one with Spanish subtitles for those who also need it. And now let's give our colleagues from conferences a few minutes to set up the screens and enjoy the screening. Thank you so much.